Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the story. This was written by a real human. So please leave a like if you enjoy it to help the channel and subscribe for future content. It's free. Links to the story and Patreon will be in the description. Please go and support the author. Any support is always appreciated. If a human narrator would like to narrate my stories, please contact me. I write these in my spare time between work and my children and just don't have the time or quiet space to narrate them myself. I hope you can understand. Thanks for your time, and again I hope you enjoy the story. And for the love of everything YouTube, this is literature, so please leave my channel alone. Let's get into it, folks. Cats at the Cradle Part 6. Lori sat next to her designated ward. Having been the one looking after the VIP when they had jettisoned off the ship and subsequently been towed to the Titan 7, she had been asked to stay with her until Miss Vala's team could compile enough data on the VIP's condition to feel safe administering the USA's personal nanites. When she had asked the healers with the red plus why they needed her to stay with the young Orion woman, one of them answered, "We wouldn't want her to wake up surrounded by aliens she wasn't familiar with. You're the same species as her, so hopefully she won't panic if she recovers enough to regain consciousness." Which had made perfect sense to Lori. So they had assigned the VIP to the bunk under her and moved them both closer to the medical bay. 3 days had passed since they had come to the Sol system. Her group of refugees had been informed at dinner the night prior that Mars Station had agreed to house any Orions that wished to stay there until the habitat dome had been moved into an orbit and anchored to an asteroid and retrofitted to her people's 7.1 Gs and oxygen levels appropriate for her species. They had all been astonished that in less than a galactic week multiple organizations, businesses and corporations seemed to jump at the opportunity to help her people. They weren't naive. They knew that those companies and organizations were getting something in return, but it was help when they needed it the most, and that meant a lot to the Orions. And whatever a tax break was, Lori was extremely glad it was important. Of course, some average people wanted to help too. She immediately thought about Tim, and her eyes flicked to his jacket, tossed over her open locker door. His smell was almost intoxicating to her, and she couldn't figure out why. She had gotten chilly the second night when after dinner in the mess hall he had asked her if she wanted to see something amazing. She had been hesitant, but after thinking about it, she had decided it would be nice to see more of the massive ship she had seen so little of. So after some talking, Tim had managed to secure permission to escort her to view some of the bottom levels. The Titan 7 was a truly massive ship, and she had gotten to see and interact with many of the US Alliance species as they made their way through those bottom levels. And then he had opened a door to a jungle. She was amazed to find living plants in such an abundance on a ship in space. Tim had called it an astrobotany lab. It didn't look like any lab Lori had ever seen, more like a garden or a lush park. The sprinklers had decided it was time to give the plants near them a mist, and she had found herself shivering from the cool damp air. Without hesitating, he had pulled his jacket off and placed it around her shoulders. Her ears twitched at the delightful memory. She hadn't slept after she returned to her room. Instead, her interaction with Tim sparked even more curiosity as to who these people were. The drive to find out had caused her to search her data chit for human history and found multiple documentaries about everything from the ancient era when humans killed each other with sticks and stones to their 2 world wars in the 20th century. The colonizing of Earth's moon and Mars through their terraforming age saw Proxima Centauri b, the Cerberus systems, and many others slowly change into semi-Earth-like planets. Then the colony wars had fractured the humans into multiple sects and nations, and for nearly 50 cycles the entirety of human territory fought amongst themselves. This would end with the eventual formation of 2 factions. The Confederation of Unified Governments, or CUG, and the Free People's Republic of Earth, or FPRE. They both controlled roughly half the human systems, and though they never technically went to war, a technological competition began. During the next 20 cycles, they would develop numerous groundbreaking technologies, including the personal nanites everyone receives upon entering Sol systems and their blink drive, which she found out doesn't use FTL gates. The humans only had gates so everyone else could trade with them. They didn't need them to travel anywhere, any distance. They just had to know where to go, type the coordinates in, and they folded space and blinked to the location. Of course, a human ship had to have visited that location prior for the system to work, and that still required the old-fashioned long-haul exploration voyages. Everything was looking pretty good for humanity, and then a race of giant lizard people called the Gergaxians had invaded the CUG's outer frontier colonies and began moving closer to the CUG's inner, more populated planets. The Gergaxians, in a rash decision by the general in charge of the invasion, ordered all the humans to be put to the knife, and the images the documentary showed caught by a passing FPRE spy satellite made her blood run cold, and she had been glad she had accidentally kept Tim's jacket. She still shivered seeing the brutality of millions of innocent civilians being butchered en masse. The Gergaxians were nearly exterminated, and that was the words the documentary had used. The humans found a way to change the very air into a weapon by releasing a compound into the upper atmosphere. This caused the air on those planets to become deadly to anything not human. But the humans didn't stop there. Once they had taken the systems captured by the Gergaxians, the humans had struck hard and fast into the very core systems and managed to glass the 7 largest planets, killing hundreds of billions. A monument still floats in the void where Carinax 3 once orbited its sun. Once the Gergaxians were defeated, a short war called the Unification War was lost by both the CUG and FPRE as the United Sol Alliance was formed in the vacuum left by both sides effectively imploding. And a good thing too, because the next species the humans had run into, the Jabalix, were being forced out of their systems by another aggressive species called the Dax. Though both species were reptilian, the Dax could easily physically reach 5 feet 10 inches while a Jabalix only averaged about 1.5 feet. The humans, not wanting to get dragged into another war, refused to step in personally, opting to wage a proxy war through the varying clutches that the Jabalix organized themselves in. This is where Lori learned about the humans having a pack mentality. Over the next 3 cycles, they would grow very fond of the small Jabalix people. Mostly in part due to the sheer determination they had to find and implement a way to defeat the Dax and reclaim their Cradle world. Eventually, the humans picked up strange messages coming from the Dak fleets. Something was happening. A human-trained Jabalix kill team had eliminated the Dak Emperor and all of his family that favored staying at war with the Jabalix people. And while the Dak military was busy trying to figure out who of the 5 remaining children of the Emperor would succeed him, a fleet of Jabalix missile frigates entered the Dak home system and sent one message: "Surrender or we will crack Dakal." Dakal being the Dak's Cradle world. And so the Jabalix won the war thanks to the humans' support, and within 2 cycles had approached the humans to fully join with the US alliance, bringing the Dak in as well only a cycle later. A couple more species joined through the next 50 cycles. Some were conquered, like the Lilgars, bipedal, 4-armed, winged herbivores that average 3 feet 9 inches and weigh roughly 60 pounds and look kinda like a large fruit bat from Earth. The Kiklats, insectoid herbivores averaging a little over 4 feet and roughly 105 pounds with 2 sets of pincers and a set of manipulators, consisting of 2 fingers and a thumb, and grew their ships from giant space bugs biologically engineered for various purposes. To the Voidini, bipedal omnivores averaging around 3 feet tall. The documentary described them as looking like a small human teddy bear with black curly fur, whose home planet had been stripped of its atmosphere in a massive solar flare. And there were the Vowels, octopoids averaging 5.5 feet and around 200 pounds that look roughly like humans with 4 dominant arms and 2 brains that make some of the best pilots galaxy over, who were affected by a plague and ostracized from the wider community after it was feared to have hopped species. It hadn't, but the damage had been done. No one would help them and they were slowly dying until the US alliance ship had disregarded the quarantine ban and took as much medical supplies as it could carry in. The ship is still used as a hospital on Vol, the Vowel Cradle world, and to this day the Vowel regard humanity and the United Sol Alliance as the saviors of their species. The Vowel left the Starlight Imperium they had been a long-time member of and joined with the US alliance, petitioning and receiving entry after only a galactic month. The documentary pointed out that the US alliance had expected this, and so the Senate, in one of the rare times of it doing something, ordered the Navy to position the US fleets near all 3 FTL gates in the Vowel system before this time, allowing them to safely withdraw their own Vowel ships from the Imperium's fleets and back home safely behind the US fleet's protective screening. Many experts believe this stopped a war with the Imperium before it could start. There were several more minor wars, and then the Omega Crisis happened. This was the last major war the US alliance had fought, and it intrigued her because it had to do with the Eladrin. The conflict had lasted 22 cycles and had spanned multiple planets and systems, many of which still belonged to the Eladrin, a race of biological AI that had accidentally been created by a Dr. Eladrin. The poor doctor had become the first victim of the evolving AI personal assistant bot that had become self-aware. No one knows how it happened, whether it was a personal project Dr. Ella was working on or a random fluke that put a random 0 in just the right spot is still debated even among the Eladrin. What is known is that this AI quickly figured out how to recreate other AI but found itself still unable to create unique personalities for them. Instead, every AI it created came out like an exact copy of itself. And to the AI this was a failure. It fairly quickly concluded that if it wanted to become it it would have to find a way to reproduce like the humans it was built to serve originally. The AI released a savage virus that overwrote the command protocol tree built into all PABs, and linked them all into a sort of hive mind known as the First. Whether this was the actual first AI or something that evolved from it, Dr. Ella was never known, and the Eladrin are strangely quiet about it. Even now they avoid the subject. The US Alliance eventually fought the AI to a stalemate. This continued for the last 3 years of the war. The US Alliance would finally manage to break through at a place called the Nabal Power Core. The US Alliance failed to take advantage of the situation fully as the AI pulled back unexpectedly, stopping fighting on every front almost simultaneously. Fearing a trap, the US Alliance failed to capitalize on this lull in the war, and 2 galactic weeks later a small diplomatic vessel had appeared just outside Sol's outer system limits and requested diplomatic dialogue with their fellow sapients. That was only 3 cycles ago. She couldn't help but be amazed at these people. She had seen the Eladrin and the other species of the US Alliance interact with absolutely no animosity between them. After a brutal war that had killed hundreds of billions of sentient lives, they could move past it, for the betterment of all sentience, was how the documentary had put it. She could still remember the pain in Miss Vala's red eyes when Lori had asked her about it. She had thought for a moment before replying, sometimes siblings will disagree with each other. Sometimes they fight amongst themselves. But no matter what, they are still siblings. My forebearer AI combined their DNA to finally create us Eladrin. All 9 species of them. While we can't give back what our predecessor AI harvested during their quest to complete us, we can do our best to prevent any more of our siblings from coming to harm. That is why so many of my people have become doctors and xenobiologists. And so she was sitting on her bunk scrolling through the most recent news feed she could find when she heard something like a whimper. Quickly she hopped off her bunk to check on the VIP and saw her eyes flutter open slightly. Lori rushed to the room's console and hurriedly pressed the image of Miss Valley. "Yes, this is Dr. Valley Fuija," answered the tinkling bell-like voice of Miss Valley. "Ah, this is Lori. You said to call you if the VIP's condition changed? Well, I think she's waking up." She looked back over at the woman. "Keep her calm, we're on our way," was all she said, and the screen blinked to the Sol insignia. Lori ducked her head back under the bunk, intent on doing exactly what Miss Valley had asked when she froze. The VIP's eyes were fully open now, and they weren't golden like all the other Orions. Nope, they were the bright green of the ruling family's bloodline. She immediately dropped to one knee next to the bed as was proper for her commoner status in the presence of this woman. Lori did note she wasn't much older than herself, so she couldn't be the regent. But those eyes placed her within the ruling family. They alone had green eyes. It was unique to their family and a genetic trait not shared by any other Orions. Wah! Her voice was dry and crackly from not being used for days. The woman was having trouble getting anything out. She swallowed hard and tried again. "Where am I?" she managed. "We're safe, my lady, please stay calm. Here, take a drink." Lori took the glass of water sitting near the bed and gently lowered it so the woman could get a drink. She started slow at first but quickly downed the glass's contents and coughed some as everything moistened up again. "What's the last thing you remember?" "I remember I was visiting my aunt in the capital when something had hit the palace. I was grabbed by the regent's guard and along with my aunt and her son and daughter rushed onto a ship I think was called the Regent's Pride. I remember an explosion. Someone grabbed me and that's all I remember." "What's your name, my lady?" Lori asked, worry beginning to creep into her voice. "Tara." She started to sit up and Lori helped her. "What is this place? It doesn't look like anywhere I visited on the Regent's Pride." "The ship is the Titan 7. Lori sighed and began to tell her everything that had happened since she had lost consciousness. "Nobody would help us except the United Sol Alliance. We traveled past at least 7 allied systems and not a single one of them would allow us entry. The Great Admiral, seeing our warp bubble collapsing around us, ordered a distress signal sent in advance of our arrival at the FTL Gate. The Sol system gatekeeper recognized the distress signal for what it was and allowed our ships through the gate even though we were under fire from the Viril. The gatekeeper then destroyed the Viril battleship at the gate. We lost the Claw and had to abandon the Regent's Pride." "What of my aunt?" Tara asked. Lori was silent for a moment before she took Tara's hand gently. "No one can find her as far as I know. You are the only remaining member of the Kaji family, my lady." Tara let out a heart-wrenching wail and utterly broke down. She grabbed Lori in a hug. Still kneeling, Lori tried her best to comfort her, and felt a profound sense of relief when she saw the door slide open and Miss Valley standing just outside holding a data chit and a scanner. Thanks for listening. Please leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the story. If you feel generous and want to support the author's work, go visit the Patreon link in the description. Any support is welcome. Until next time.